Welcome to the Sunday brunch dance party here at Beyond the Green Room. I'm David Edwards, and I'm your host, and we are here to discuss all things theater. That unconventional show tune was from the original Broadway cast recording of Taboo. One of my guests was among that original cast. I believe he was probably one of those singers that we just heard. So I would like to bring on my wonderful guest this week. We had an all-female panel last week. Well, we have an all-male panel this week. My first guest is a gentleman who is an actor, a singer, a director, and the artistic director of a theater called Actors Theater of Indiana, which I know very little about, but we're going to find out. He's an old friend. Please welcome Don Farrell.
Hello, David. How are you?
I'm great. I see you got your coffee. Are you in a different time zone?
I have my coffee. Look what coffee mug it is.
Gosh.
I pulled that out of the cupboard. That takes you back, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, I know now how you're going to answer the first question that we always have on this show. So let me bring on the other two gentlemen and we'll get started. It's great to see you.
Great to see you.
My next guest is a very old friend and is also a man of many talents, a musician first, a director, an actor, and the producing artistic director of one of my favorite places to work, Surflight Theater. Please welcome Steve Steiner.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Well, see, my coffee cup isn't quite as interesting. But.
Yeah, but your coffee cup is infinite. Your use of a coffee cup before the beginning of every show is legendary on Long Beach Island. Yeah. And I even tried to imitate you once at a gala, I think, that we did in New York for some fundraising after the Superstorm
Sandy, yeah,
and it got a huge laugh of recognition. So you were famous beyond the confines of Long Beach Island for your coffee cup intros. So before we get too far into this, I want to bring on my third guest, and this is a young gentleman that I've known for quite some time too. He's been in two of the I guess you could say landmark shows. He was in the original cast of Taboo, and until very recently, when he went on somewhat of a hiatus in the Broadway cast of Hamilton. Please welcome Gregory Treco.
Hi.
Hey, and we're going by the single name of Treco right now. You are. Like Hildegard and Cher and Orphe, using a single name.
Well, single name. I need that jacket.
Well, you know what? I figured I had to do a little dress to kill here. So
it's gorgeous. I see what you did.
Did we surprise you with that?
I love it.
All right, guys. Well, now that you're all in the room, we play a little introductory game every time we start the show, and it's we call it maybe 1 degree of David Edwards. So I'm going to ask each one of you how we met. It may not be the same story for me, but I always find it's interesting, and it opens up the conversation. Don, you go first. I think I know what you're going to say.
Yes. We were doing Worth Gardner's production of Maury Eston's Phantom. This is my recollection of when we first met. I can't remember the year, though, but it wasn't yesterday.
Doesn't matter.
It wasn't yesterday. It was a little bit ago. And Columbus, Ohio. And we were all, I think there was some local as well as hired from New York. But here's the story that I had on that. Unfortunately, the show never came to fruition. Players Theater Columbus had, I think there was a little bit of debt that was involved leading into our production, but it was the highest pre-sale they had ever had. They had the chandelier that was on loan from Paper Mill Playhouse All of the designers had gotten all the deals to come in. But we tried to save the theater company. There was a fundraising thing. We had the news cameras coming in and everything. It was going to be amazing production. I loved that show. And but I got I had a one-way ticket there to Columbus. And the theater didn't. I was going to schedule my return flight to New York City later after some personal stuff I was going to have done. And when all of this came to the end, I was stuck in Columbus. And they had a special. I was the one. I was like, bye, guys. And they had a deal with U.S. Air, and U.S. Air gave in and gave me a one-way flight back to Manhattan.
Well, I have to tell you, I was the deputy on that.
You were the deputy. Oh, my gosh. You had your hands full.
I've been the deputy a couple of times, and every time I'm the deputy, the theater goes under. So,
what does that say?
Which is the reason why I never have to be the deputy ever again. I scare people and I say, look, this is what happened. I was one of the lucky ones. Not only did I have a round trip ticket,
yes,
but I landed another job immediately when I got back, and I made out like a bandit, put it this way.
Yeah.
But it was a scary time. They had the new cameras in front of our housing, and it was just bizarre because they had spent so much money on this production.
It was a beautiful theater.
It was
in a great location. But at that time, I think it wasn't just Players Theater Columbus that was having issues. I think the opera and the symphony. I remember there was a collective thing about the arts that was having a really tough time in Columbus, unfortunately.
We never seem to hear stories about the arts having problems, but
never. It's so easy and it's so glamorous. Nobody sees the other side of it, right?
Well, I'm going to ask Steve the answer to the question about how we met now, because we've worked together so much over the years. But I think I'll know your answer as well.
We met actually not when I was a deputy, and I've been a deputy like 80 times, I think, or maybe more. But we met doing committee work at Equity.
I think you're right about that. I think you're right. I think we also were doing, we were both working at the same theater, where I think you were rehearsing Little Shop and I was doing Strider. And we
that was up in Cohoes, New York. Yes, that's right.
And I remember we had a radio interview together. And the interviewer asked, Strider was a play about a horse, basically. And this interviewer said to you something about, well, is this a theme this season at Cohoes Music Hall? Because I see the next show is Little Shop of Horses.
Yes, well,
and you were very good-natured about that, and a
whole equestrian theme going on there.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so surprising because it was such a famous show, but not everybody does their homework.
Yes, indeed. But I think, I don't remember which preceded, whether we met when we were doing different shows together, or when we did the committee work. I thought it was the committee work, but I could be wrong.
No, you're probably right about that. And of course, your journey in the business has taken you away from doing the committee work on Actors Equity, because you've become a producer, and we're certainly going to get into that very soon. I want to ask Greg what he remembers about our first meeting, how we met.
Well, we met. My partner was doing the producers with David, and that's how we met. I moved around with them for a little bit while I took my hiatus.
You came to visit us every chance you could. you and Rich were very much the newlyweds at that point, if you were.
At that point, for sure.
And you were doing Taboo, I think, then, weren't you?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
just started when you
yeah,
guys started.
yeah.
I just started doing Taboo.
Well, we want to talk about that and your experience in Hamilton, and also about Rich, because he was a great force in our theater, and he was unfortunately gone too soon, fairly recently.
Yes.
So Don, this is a world of catching up we have to do, because I think the last time we worked together was we did a reading in New York when you were still New York based, and I was about to go out on the producers tour, and I haven't seen you since then. Since then, you started a whole theater in Indiana, and I've been following your work on Facebook. You get to direct, you play some of the dream roles you've always wanted to do, and it's an amazing thing. Was this all part of a master plan, or how did this all come about?
In a way, I guess. To be honest with you, our good friend Worth Gardner, I used to live in Chelsea, above the original Barney's in New York, which is now Barney's, back to Barney's. But then I couldn't anyway. But I'd go to David Barton Gym, and Worth was like, I was working out one time, and he said, Don, I'd been doing some symphony work. I went to school at Cincinnati, so through Eric Kunzel, God rest his soul. But I was doing a lot of symphony work around, and I was, as everybody in this industry, it's like, my gosh, I go to these auditions, and he goes, well, he just shifted my way of thinking. Instead of always waiting for the phone call to make the phone calls, and so. And so that planted the seed, and I was doing a lot of directing, which was another shift of focus, because I always saw myself as a performer. But then I was doing a little show called Forever Plaid, and then I was forever doing that show, and that opened up a door for me to direct a production. And I never thought of myself as a director, so that shifted my focus a little bit too. And then the success of some of the shows I was doing regionally directing, I started thinking, well, wait, if these theater companies are willing to put me in the responsible role of their season subscription renewal show, which is their season end, the final, and they believe it, maybe I got something here. Maybe there's something I can do more, and maybe I can start making it happen for myself. So then 9/11 happened, and that shifts your focus as well. And I was, at that time, I was living up in just south of Inwood. I was up in Washington Heights, 190th Fort Washington. Loved it up there. Loved Fort Tryon Park, the cloisters. Oh, God. I watched the sunset with over the GWB. I just loved it.
It's still there. Come back.
I want to.
Yes.
Oh, believe me, I want to. I'm wanting to come back. But 9/11 happened. I started thinking about all these, the dreams of having a home and having a yard and having a family. And at the time, I was married to Judy Fitzgerald. And Judy Fitzgerald and I, she was from here in Indiana, and her family and everything. And the mayor of Carmel, Indiana, I read in a newspaper about Carmel. And now this is a completely red state, as you know, as is Carmel, but it's very progressive. And the mayor believed in making culture an economic driver. Hello. And we all know how important culture is to the economic vibrancy of a community. And that's what he was doing. He said, we've got cornfields here. We don't have the mountains. We don't have the oceans. We don't even have the desert, like, Scottsdale, Arizona or something. So what he decided to do is shift the focus and make this culture driven. And that has created a great quality of life. His infrastructure on placemaking has been amazing. And they've built a $180 million arts complex called the Center for the Performing Arts. There are 3 different venues. One is a 1,600-seat European-style concert hall called the Palladium. There is a 500-seat proscenium theater called the Tarkington, named after Booth Tarkington. And then there is the Studio Theater, which is a flexible space, black box, if you will, that can go from cabaret seating to in the round, and we do it in thrust, and we're at about 200 seating capacity, and that's our home primarily, but we also have done shows at the Palladium as well. And so when I met with the mayor, he was like, he told us about the vision. I said, well, you know, what other organizations have you been talking to? And there was symphony, and there was some community theaters, and there was some professional dance and community dance companies. And I said, but you don't have an equity theater company. You're going to, this is beautiful. And I believe in, I love Central Indiana. There's so many different theaters here, community theater, there's passion for theater. I love the idea, but you're going to need a professional theater company to help anchor this a little bit. And that's what that's our vision. We were thinking at the time either moving to Indiana or to my home in Atlanta, Georgia, just north of that in Roswell and Alpharetta, Georgia. Well, once he started mentioning about we would love to have a resident company, and they were looking at a consortium of arts organizations that this the Center for the Performing Arts, which is primarily a producing presenter type thing. They do have an educational arm, but they don't create the art necessarily, except for in the songbook. Michael Feinstein is the artistic director, so he came here. They created the Great American Songbook Hall of Fame. Just like you have a rock and roll Hall of Fame, you've got a blues Hall of Fame, you've got jazz, you got all those. Well, there never was a Great American Songbook Hall of Fame. And now Carmel, Indiana is the home of the Great American Songbook Hall of Fame.
It sounds like I should move to Carmel, Indiana. There might be
It is. I cannot talk enough about this community. And I as an artist and a producer, all of that, to be have a community of leaders, as not just on civic level, but also on business level, people who are passionate about the arts and want to have a good quality of life. And the cost of living is, a dollar goes a lot farther here in Indiana than it does in a lot of other cities.
You should be getting a stipend from the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, we all help each other because that's really what it's all about. All together, we work together, and the ship, all the ships, all the boats rise. So we've been very blessed. We've been here now for 15 years.
That's great. Well, and Surflight Theater's been around for a lot longer than that, even before your time. But
great reputation at Surflight, yes.
What Steve did with Surflight, I would venture to say that, except possibly for the Atlantic Ocean, the biggest landmark on Long Beach Island is Surflight Theater, and we have the man who really has done the most to bring that about. You were one of the first people that invited me to direct there, and I think I've directed something like 6 or 8 shows. And
yes, the first time you came to work here, it was to do Camelot.
Yeah, but I think before that I directed South Pacific the year before. But but Camelot was the first time I set foot on the stage as a performer, and
that's right.
That opened up a whole new avenue for us.
And you directed a number of shows, both plays and musicals. I think you did Showboat, didn't you?
Yes. In fact, we were talking about that last week. Anita Hollander was on last week.
I see. Yeah.
We were reminiscing about that, and we were teasing a little bit about it being at the end of the season, and we had very little budget, and the apprentices teased us about calling it No Boat, because my concept was to use, actually it was very pretty looking. We used these reproductions of the old watercolor postcards from 150 years ago to suggest each place, and it worked very well. And we were reminiscing an awful lot about Surflight. There's so many of us have been depending on Surflight survival, and this year you made some rather bold decisions just to keep the doors open. Can you tell us what was going on this year?
Sure. Well, we, like everybody else, was trying to reinvent the theatrical wheel, and we decided that we would erect a tent in the park across the street, 50 by 100-foot open air tent. We put a stage that was the entire width of the tent, although we did leave space for wings. So the playing area was 35 feet wide, which is similar to the stage that we have here at Surflight Theater, indoors. Of course, we couldn't do some of the more scenically challenging shows that we had scheduled, like Legally Blonde, which is, just needs a lot of stuff. And we had American in Paris, and that needs a lot of stuff. But Cabaret doesn't need a lot of stuff, and so we put that one on and extended the run a little bit. We did Mamma Mia, which doesn't really need a lot of stuff either, and we already had a set for that because we had done it the previous year. We usually don't repeat things, but we sold that thing out and people wanted it again, so we did it again. And just so happens this year to not have to pay for a set was great. And then we did Almost Heaven, which is a musician actor show with 6 musicians, and they played 23 instruments and sang brilliantly, and basically did his songbook. But we didn't know if we were even going to be allowed to open. We had all these plans in place, but hadn't really acted on anything until about it was about maybe the 10th of June. Restaurants had already opened outside, and we were getting to the point where we were going to say, let's sell hot dogs and say we're a restaurant. And then the governor said that as of June 22nd, we can have outdoor socially distanced gatherings of 250. And by July 4th, it was going to be 500. Well, we were never going to get 500 people in that tent socially distanced. So meanwhile, we were also negotiating with Equity this entire time, going back into April, trying to get them to even talk to us. And it was very, very, very difficult. Finally, they just said, they said, send us a proposal. And so then they rejected the proposal. I said, well, then they started asking, what about testing? What are you going to do? What do you want us to do? And we'll do it. Yeah. And they wouldn't tell us. They said, no, send us a proposal.
Well, which is we're all in unknown territory right now, but still, they are clawing their way back a little bit.
No, I know.
But really, what you did, I'm surprised that they weren't able to come to some sort of agreement with that, because
the proof is in the pudding. We have a kind of a specific thing here where we have housing here for 55, so we can actually create sort of a poor man's NBA bubble, where everybody that works here lives here and doesn't interact with anybody else. And we basically put that up front for everyone, that's the way we were going to have to do it, because if anybody got this, the whole thing collapses. And we did 64 performances and 17 performances of concerts and comedy and things like that, which is about half of what we normally do. But we did it, and we got through the 13 weeks of the tent in the park. It's actually, they're dismantling it right now because we finished our final concert last night.
Well, you had the hurricane almost dismantle it at one point.
We did. Yeah, it went down and we got it back up and back together, and the stage put back together in 2 days.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But the thing is that over that period of time, 100% nobody got sick. Nobody caught it. Nobody had anything. We tested constantly, and everybody was negative 100% of the time. So what we proposed worked.
That's great. That's great. Well, that's great to hear. I mean, I am actually doing a virtual production with Theater Emory for a 3-week Equity contract coming up.
Oh, great.
and no one is more surprised for me than me when I got the phone call. I'm glad they're doing it. I'm glad I don't have to leave my house, but I certainly do miss being on a live stage, and I'm sure we all feel that way. And I guess it's going to be a little bit more before we can do that. And you've set a wonderful example. Greg, were you performing Hamilton when this all hit?
I actually had so my last performance as Aaron Burr was Halloween, because then the whole Rich situation happened. But I had my first rehearsal the Tuesday before we shut down, like my first rehearsal back, and I was like, cool, we're here. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, we're not here. So I was basically gone from November 1st to the day before.
Oh my God.
It was just kind of wild. I was so happy to like try and figure out how to say all these big words that you must say in this play. Going through grief and going through like just, grief.
Well, you've had more than your share of grief this year. We were all dealing with this pandemic and economic hardships, but I would be remiss if we didn't discuss your wonderful partner who we lost this year, Rich Afanato. I did indeed do the producers with him. We used to have understudy rehearsal together, where I was the skinniest Max Bialystock, and he was Leo Bloom. And I have to tell you, I remember one day we were in Boston and we were out on the street, and we were discussing understudy rehearsal, and a bus came by and stopped at a stoplight, and it had a huge producer's poster on the side, and Rich's face went right where the Leo Bloom was. It was a surreal moment for me. And neither of us had ever gone on at that point. And I think I went on for Max shortly after that. And it kind of, when you're rehearsing it, you're playing at it a little bit, but the reality of possibly doing one of these bears on a first class production like that. So you've been now. Burr was not the only role that you were covering, right? Or
well, I was Burr for a year in Chicago. So I moved to Chicago and I replaced. Who did I replace? Like Wayne Brady, somebody weird. Somebody beautiful. And then when this all happened, my contract was done.
Yeah.
And literally within an hour, Rich called and said, my tumor's back. And I said, cool, I have to come home anyway. And they offered me my job back in New York as a standby. So now I play Burr, Washington, Lafayette Jefferson, and Mulligan Madison.
Amazing.
At any given moment, as you know.
Well, talking about, I don't want to leave the subject of Rich here too. Rich was not only a wonderful actor, but he ventured into producing and was working very hard on some of the most interesting and edgy and cutting edge productions. We both did Caligula together at one point, did we not?
Right.
Yeah. It was a glam rock version of the retelling of Caligula, and you would not expect David Edwards to be part of anything glam rock. But this really was so wonderful. And Ewan Morton was playing the title role, and you were doing it for a while, and you were brilliant as well, and we had very high hopes for it, and Rich worked very hard at getting it on, and I guess we also lost the director at one point, sadly, so we were plagued with a lot of bad luck with that show, to say the least. But Eric Svekar wrote the script and the music and lyrics. just wonderful. A lot of terrific people were involved at one time or another on that stage. And Rich was also, I think the last time I saw him was in the theater when he was on the one of the producers of The Visit.
For sure.
And I told him how proud I was that he was involved with such a show like that. And
the show was wild.
It was unforgettable. It really was.
It's so good. Too bad it didn't get what it needed, because it was, I mean, it was, you know, essentially his last show. Not Rich's last show, but their collaboration.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and then the Stage Network, you know, what he created, like, which started from us sitting across from each other on a couch and him being like, what if there was Netflix for theater? And I was like, you're wild.
Yeah,
and then he did it, and it was just getting there when he was, you know, not like Broadway HD, love them, but just strange and cool things, you know what I mean? His brain was wild.
Well, you know, yeah, he had a brain tumor, but he also had an awful lot of good stuff going on in that brain.
A whole bunch. That might be why.
We are really very sorry. The whole theater community, you know, mourns his loss, but you keep the flame burning. I know when we had a wonderful Zoom reunion of the producers not long ago, and we had you on board even though you weren't in the cast, because you were such a part of that family. It was great. I don't know if you guys have been doing Zoom with your friends, but there was, I think, 40 of us, and I thought it would last a half an hour, and we were on the Zoom call for like 4 hours, and Susan Stroman was with us, and it was a wonderful thing. So because of this platform, I get to see you guys. Last week, I finished the show, and I ran out of the house without my mask on, because for a minute I forgot that we could look at each other like this and not have to worry about it. I had to run back in and put it on, and we adjust. Theater people have always been adaptable. And
absolutely.
That's what. So Steve, you still have a season yet to finish, right?
Well, yes. I mean, we're finished in the tent. It's coming down in a couple of days. They're dismantling the stage and the backstage area, and you know, doing all of that right now. And I'll go out and help as soon as we're done here. But you know, but we are going to continue. We've moved our December show, which is Ebenezer, which is a musical adaptation of A Christmas Carol that we've done a few times. We've moved that into 2021, and we've in 2 of the 3 years since I've been back at this theater, we've done our own shows that we've written, and I've written the musical arrangements for well-known holiday songs, but the special arrangements for the shows that we've done. So we're writing another one of those that's not going to be a large show. It's going to be like a 5-person show with some children as well, to make it be a little larger, and you know, because kids are great at Christmas. So that's happening in December. We're going to do a 5-actor show that is 3 vintage 30-minute Alfred Hitchcock radio shows. So it's going to be a live Alfred Hitchcock radio thing that we're doing in October 24th and 25th and 30th and 31st, sort of to tie into Halloween a little bit. And we are continuing. We have this ice cream parlor with singing waiters and waitresses next door that operates only in the summertime. It's great fun, and a lot of famous people have gone through there, including the lead in Beetlejuice. He was a singing waiter there. But this year we put a smaller tent, a 30 by 30 tent, over our patio that sits between the theater and the ice cream parlor. And they did that whole thing outside this year. and the tent, because we bought it used, so it's stayed up. And so now we're doing a Saturday night stand-up comedy, and we did one the first week, and it sold out, and the second week sold out on Thursday. And I said, why don't we try a second one? And the comics all said, sure, why not? I mean, they haven't been working anywhere either, let's face it. And so we did, and it sold out too. So we did 2 this week, and they both sold out. And we're going to continue this outside as long as the weather will allow us to. We did get a couple of those big propane patio heaters. So we can hopefully continue doing that outside, at least until the 10th of October, maybe a little longer. So there's a few things we're doing, but when we're doing the shows in the theater, socially distanced, and 25%, when 25% for us is a maximum of 112, because we have 450 seats in the theater. So we have to, it's going to be every other row, and it's going to be like what we did in the tent. I didn't describe that, but we changed the seating for every performance. So it would be like 2 seats, the tickets were bought together, and then 6 feet, and then 4 seats, and then 6 feet, and then one guy by himself, and then 6 feet, and so on. And that would change for every performance. We rearranged the seats for every performance so that people could be socially distanced while enjoying a live theatrical performance. So it wasn't. We tried to protect the people that are in viewing the shows as much as we protected our company of actors and technicians and designers.
Well, you certainly succeeded. There's been obviously you've had no issues, and rearranging seats in the Surflight tent was more successful than rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, apparently. And,
yes, indeed.
But it certainly looked like, that everything was sinking, but you managed to keep it afloat this year, and that's no small feat. And
yeah, I mean, financially, it's going to take a giant hit because we weren't prepared for the, as I'm sure you ran into, Don. Our advance sale was going great until March 13th, and then it just fell off. Yeah. We were, bringing in maybe between, $12,000 and $20,000 a week, and then it went down to $400. So, and it stayed at 400.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we there's certain venues that are going to be in a better position than others. Broadway, unfortunately for Greg, is going to be probably the last thing to come back. But I think that Hamilton will come roaring back, if any show will. So,
sure.
That's good news. And the event that was on Disney Plus this year keeps it foremost in everyone's mind. It was amazing to see that, and what you discussed in terms of the work that Rich was doing to generate projects like that. I think there's a lot of people that would say, will that kill live theater if we can see it on our computers and on our television sets? And I don't think so. I think it would just whet the appetite even more.
I was in an interview with a business magazine locally here, and they asked me about how the pandemic is affecting our industry, my industry. And, I'm with you on that, David. I think that obviously this is a major seismic shift for our industry, and you can never go back to before, as the song goes. And I do believe that it will be a new normal. And the thing is, the good news is that, everybody has seen how much art has helped us through this pandemic with Netflix and Hulu and everything on what you're doing and what we have done and what Steve and everybody, all of us have been doing to be creative outside of the box during this pandemic. But we've also kind of created a monster in a way because of the hunger and the desire and the appetite for technology's not going away, for content. And my belief is that the art form will never die. I mean, the art form has been through many pandemics before. It will be through many pandemics down the road, unfortunately. It's just the way it is. But that's what makes live theater so special, is we all come together and experience it. However, a good number of our base, which I'm sure it was Steve as well, that, you know, these are the people who are highly susceptible to the virus.
Absolutely.
So even after we have the vaccine, even after we have it distributed, and we know and we trust the vaccine, and the percentages of the success rate are such that are much better, like the flu vaccine is, we still will have a percentage of our base that will not feel comfortable coming back in. I'm sure, Steve, you guys did a survey. We did a survey as well. There are a lot of people that, now our survey was done back in May, but even the Arts Council of Indianapolis, along with the Indianapolis Star, did a major survey that didn't just have to deal with the arts. It also dealt with, you know, event planning and the sports and things like that, festivals. So it was a wide spectrum of questions that were going on, but the answers were very similar as to, you know, some people are saying, yeah, it's all a hoax. We got to open it up right back now. Okay, there's that. Then there's some people who are like, well, I'll wait and see how it goes. Then there's some people who are like, not until we've got the vaccine. And then even after the vaccine, it's like they're still touch and go. So we're going to have to be, technology's not going to go away. And my belief as a producer, and I wear those dual hats. I've been a union member. I just celebrated my 28th anniversary. I got my email from Equity I was like, oh, I didn't realize 28 years ago I applied for the union. So 28-year anniversary union member, very proud union member. But as a producer, and none of us are fat cats here, we're just trying to keep the doors open and give people work. But I think that the union really needs to work, and they are coming a little bit. We have a media agreement we have until December 31st. But my encouragement to Chicago Equity is this pandemic is not going away January 1st, 2021. And we need to have continual dialogue and the union working with us as producers, so we can hire people to, like, for example, one of the things we're doing, we've been doing concerts like what Steve's done, drive-in theater, using that concept, and have people come in and have social distance drive-in theaters, and we do concerts of music, not a show, because we can't fall under Equity jurisdiction on that type of stuff. But it's myself and my two co-founders who are also producers with the theater company, and we have a combo. So there's that, and everybody has to stay in their car, or if they want to stay outside, they have to wear a mask. So we have a lot of safety protocols involved with that. But we've done streamlining on our Facebook page, where we were interviewing local artists and local arts leaders about what's going on in the art. But then we're also going to take one of our archive videos and stream that of Alabama Story that we did last year. Right now, the union's agreement is only until December 31st, and I would like to be able to target this play with Martin Luther King Day in January. And that's the thing. We're trying to get the media committee to come back and they were supposed to have a meeting last week, and I'm waiting to hear back on that. But that being as an example, technology, and I think that all theaters are going to need to find a cinematographer or something like that on contract, where we can, for the audience that won't come in, that maybe we have a streaming night that you can get your password thing, and those people who are susceptible to this disease, unfortunately, they need to be also, you know, they love the arts, and these are people who have been major donors and supporters during these difficult times, and we can't just turn our backs on them. So I just encourage the union and the membership to let the union know, hey, you know, because when we do an archive video, those union, we were going to run it for 2 weeks, and all of those union members get 2 weeks salary plus pension and health.
Well, that's so important.
You know?
I had months of work lined up that would have taken care of my health insurance, and it all fell like a house of cards.
Yep.
And this 3 weeks that I'm getting in this project is a godsend, but I still am 1 week short. And I am loath to change my plan because I don't know what's going to happen with the healthcare laws or anything like that. So we're all venturing into the unknown right now. And I do think of some of the productions I've done over the years where they've done an archival tape, some of them in a very professional way, that if they thought ahead, of course, none of us knew this was happening, but if they had, just done it in a slightly more slick way, they would have had a product now to use and keep their subscribers, in the loop. But we'll know for the next time, when 100 years from now, when we
there's a major learning curve, and that's the beauty, like you said, David. We adapt. We've adapted to a variety of, no one theater there's cookie cutter. Everybody has it. That every was a little different animal, but the art form is still the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when we have challenges. Hey, look at how great technology and the creative spirit of artists have been to help be able to help our community during these difficult times. And same thing with the union. I'm not at all. I mean, Lord knows, they've got their hands full. And then they have to also, people being furloughed, and they have hundreds and hundreds of theater companies trying to inundate them with plans. I did the same thing, just like you, Steve. We were going to open our season this year with Always Patsy Cline, and my two colleagues, Judy and Cindy, are a couple, and they actually were going to do so they've already been in their bubble.
Sure.
And we were going to do it in the Palladium, which is a 1,600 seat European style concert hall that it could work in, and the stage, the width of it is 40 feet, and the distance from the audience to the artist is well over 10 feet. And it's got really, really great HVAC, HEPA system and everything. And with social distancing, that 1,600 seats turns into 272 or fluctuates between.
Yeah.
But the union, and I was trying, and it was too late. We were going to do all the testing once a week. We were going to have understudies for everybody. We make sure we have the band all socially distanced behind plexiglass screens. Everybody has to wear their mask before they make their entrance on stage. The band can keep the mask on unless they're playing the wind instrument, which is behind the plexi screen. All of these things were being planned in there, among many other protocols that we had put up, just like you. But the union, it was such we were on the stack of proposals that they were going through, and time is running out, and I can't do my pre-production, and I can't sell tickets. And I'm like, I got to pull the plug. I hate to do it, guys, but I have to pull the plug. So now we're kicking the can down the road to fall of 21. Mm-hmm. And we don't have, even though we're at the studio theater, I mean, social distancing with a 200 seat turns into 50. And you can't make the numbers work on that at all.
No, I know. We're being really careful on just with, doing our 5 character shows, because that's the only way we can make the numbers work. Yeah. It's a funny thing. We talk about the technology will never replace live performance, live theater. There's a Kaufman and Hart play from 1938 called The Fabulous Invalid, which is about the theater. Do you know it, David?
Sure.
And back then it was like the theater was on its last legs, and this play is all about that, because I guess the movies, but it's an interesting piece. You might pick it up and read it, because it's an interesting piece about how the theater will always survive, and that's going back to 1938. You were talking about your equity anniversary. I'm 40 years this year.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Well,
did you get a clock?
David, you're probably even more than that.
I joined when I was 11 years old.
Yeah.
So I'm without telling you, you can do the math and you can figure where I might be. But if there were gold watches or statuettes to be given, I would be right on target for one.
And I was on council for 10 years too. So we're all in the same boat about wanting them to do the right thing.
Yeah,
they just need to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, I mean, talking about that, Steve, you for those of you who may not know, Steve Steiner had a very vivid career on Broadway and off-Broadway. Some of the shows he did, the 1987 Lincoln Center revival of Anything Goes awesome. With Patti LuPone and a State Fair. I remember we spent a a wonderful evening in Palm Beach when you guys were on your pre-Broadway. I think it was the night that you found out you were officially going to Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And I was rehearsing a show in Florida, and I came over because another one of your cast members, I was her date for the evening, and we had a wonderful party in a mansion in Palm Beach. And
it was ridiculous.
It was an amazing night, and everyone was entertaining, and you and I were raiding the big bowl of fresh shrimp there. So you bring actors to a party in Palm Beach, and yeah.
Did you all walk away with bags of fun stuff to take home, parting gifts?
No, I wish I had. Whenever I do work on a film, I always bring home a few goodies from craft services.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, I did one day on a SAG-AFTRA project a couple of weeks ago, and I'm about to do another one. The SAG-AFTRA is really working very hard to bring production back, and but it is surreal because you go out and you get your COVID test 2 days before, and you wait for your results, and then they give you your booking information that you can go to set, and then they give you another test when you get there. Everybody's dressed in blue with masks on, and craft services, as we know it, does not exist any longer. You have to point to your chocolate bar or your Diet Coke, and they give it to you in rubber gloves, and when you and they broke us. They said we're going to have dinner now, and I went to get in the line at catering, and you're not allowed to touch anything. These guys with masks bring out hermetically sealed lunch boxes for you, and then you go inside the cafeteria and sit behind plexiglass walls and eat your dinner. It was like working on a science fiction movie or something like that. But this is what we have to do to move ahead, and I welcome it because I'm not getting enough work in live theater right now. I've got to turn to this. So we are adaptable, and Steve, you started as a musician, correct?
Yes, right out of college. Yeah, I toured playing in mostly hotel clubs, actually, back in the 70s, because that was very much in vogue in those days. And we did. There was a genre of bands that were called Las Vegas show bands, where they would do a floor show, and then they would play a set of dance music, and then they'd do a different floor show. And so we did those, and I did that for about 6 years right out of college, and then went back to my home, which was not far from where you are in Indiana, Don, because I grew up in St. Louis. It's about 230 miles, I guess, from where you are, something like that. Yeah, you're just north of Indianapolis, right?
Yeah, 30 minutes north.
Well, you also, that opened up wonderful avenues for you in shows like Honky Tonk Highway and Buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, you were, before the John Doyle era, you were getting work as an actor because you were a musician as well. So.
That's right. The Buddy Holly story was certainly a big one, and I've now since doing that in New York, I've directed maybe 8 or 9 productions, and I've actually produced 5 tours of it. There was one out in Bismarck, North Dakota, when the pandemic struck. They were on their way across to Michigan, and then just kept coming because everything stopped. So that's supposed to go out next year again. We hope it will.
Well, I don't know how you feel, Greg, but I wish I learned an instrument all those years ago.
Me too. It's one of my greatest regrets.
Well, you've kept working pretty steadily. I mean, not only in the 2 shows we've mentioned, but you were in a show called Xana Don't.
Off-Broadway. I remember that.
Yeah, and what was
very proud of that.
I had a recording once, and I was trying to find it because I was going to play it. A show called Miracle Brothers that you were involved with.
I was in Miracle.
Quite an illustrious cast. Whatever happened with that? Did that ever get on, or was it just in the
It was supposed to. It was one of those transfers. It was like, we're going to transfer, we're going to go. But, you know, egos get in the way. Sometimes egos get in the way of theater. So that's essentially what happened with Miracle Brothers. Good story, good thing. It still might happen. I'm like getting to be the right age to play the older characters. So, which I loved anyway. So yeah. I mean, I'm not. I wouldn't be looking forward to being a dolphin. I'm like pulling myself all over a stage like I was.
Is that what it entails? I couldn't.
Yeah. Wearing white shorts with Karen Olivo in the chorus, pretending to be like dolphins. Like yip, 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 yip. Like it was Tina Landau. It was wondrous. Christian Child. It was
Wow.
You know, Carrie Butler, Cheryl Freeman. It was like just the stars of the stars, and you know. So Miracle Brothers.
It's unfathomable sometimes when you hear about these projects that have so much talent involved and sound so original that they wither on the vine. And I know. If I had a nickel for every one of the ones that I thought was going to go someplace, that I thought I was on the ground floor with, but you know, it's a strange business. We try to outguess what the next trend is, and sometimes amazingly talented people are involved with something that has no substance to.
That's a project. That's a new program that we started last year for Actors Theater of Indiana, was to help encourage new playwrights and things. I mean, there's a lot of other theater companies that have done it, but this was the first time for us to do something formalized. We call it the ATI Theater Lab. And you know, and we actually, Steve, one of our playwrights, Lindsay Adams from Missouri, she brought a play in called Rattler, and we did that last year. It was really good play. We did Hollywood, Nebraska by Kenneth Jones. That was our first one out, and then the pandemic hit for our third one, which was going to be a local playwright here. But we try to encourage you know, playwrights from around plays or musicals, but plays are easier to do than the musicals in such a short. We have a 20. I think Equity gives us a 20-hour code. We're under an SPT 4, and our writer with that is we can do a reading of but it has to be 20 hours from first rehearsal to the end of the reading. And but hey, like you said, David, there's so many different things. When I learned on the other side of the table as to all of the other the workings of this industry, holy cow. And I'm still learning about it. I've got friends of mine who are producing on Broadway. I'm like, you know, what's going on? What are you guys saying? And you know, you were talking about the older theaters in New York. Another friend of mine told me, you know, there's a string of Broadway houses. What is it, on 45th Street, I think, all owned by Drew Jameson. Isn't that right? I think they all share the same HVAC system, is what I heard. And that's tough because they're all going to have to do a lot of infrastructure and make individual HVAC systems for each one of those Broadway houses. So there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done for everybody across the board.
And we've been saying for years that however much we may love the old Broadway theaters, there's not a lot of space between rows. I mean, people with someone with long legs like you, Steve. I don't know how you sit in a Broadway theater. I mean, my knees are up by my ears sometimes if you sit up in the balcony. And
mine don't go that high anymore.
That's what yoga's for, there, Steve. You're doing your yoga stretches.
It's not really great when it's 3 hours watching a musical. We're actually getting to the point where we take a little bit of an intermission here.
Okay.
Intermission is kind of a large term for this. It's just a short break for our audience and our guests to refill their coffee or their Bloody Mary or whatever they do, or run to the potty break. But before we do, I pose a quiz question to our audience. The quiz question this week is, what Broadway musical was a collaboration between Cole Porter and Orson Welles? And you can think about that during this little break. And during this little break, we're going to listen to a cut from the cast album of Anything Goes from Lincoln Center, which heavily features the extraordinary pipes of Steve Steiner. And if you know his voice, you will pick it out immediately. But it's a fun clip, and I hope it brings you back to another time in your career that was pleasant and a great deal of fun. I love listening to it. So let's take our intermission and listen to Steve Steiner and the original Broadway cast of Anything Goes from the Lincoln Center production. And we'll be right back to answer the quiz question.
I want to row on the crew, mama. That's the thing I want to do, mama. To be known throughout Yale as I walk about it. Get a boil on my tail and then talk about it. I'd like to be a big bloke, mama, and learn that new Argentine stroke, mama. You'll see your slim son putting crimps in the crimson when I row on that varsity crew.
Sailor's life is supposed to be a hell of a lot of fun. Yes, but when you're a sailor, take it from me, you'll work like a son of a gun. They give us jobs of every kind and chores of every sort. But sweat away, sailor, you don't mind, 'cause you know when we reach port, there will always be a lady fair, a Jenny fair, or a Sadie fair. There'll always be a lady fair who's waiting there for you. There will always be a lady fair to smooth your troubles and to muss your hair. There'll always be a lady fair who's waiting there for you. There will always be a girl's caress to change your answer from a no to yes. There'll always be a lady fair who's waiting there for you. Bum, ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, 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 bum.
Makes you want to get up and do a hornpipe. I don't know. The other two really did go and get their bathroom break, but that's great, Steve.
And it was beautiful.
Your voice is unmistakable. And for those of you who wondered, it was that fabulous bass voice in the quartet that is the unique sound of Steve Steiner. Of
course, when it first came on, we were listening to Rex Everhart.
Thank you. I didn't want anybody to think that, we're not quite that high tech here that we could just get you and.
Rex was terrific in that show. Terrific. He was playing opposite Anne Francine.
Well, and here's a little bit of trivia before we get to the quiz question. He was on the original cast recording of 1776 playing Ben Franklin,
That's
although
right.
he was not the original Ben Franklin. Howard Da Silva had a heart attack and left the cast before the cast album could be done. So we got Rex Everhart, and if you see the film of 1776, you can see Howard Da Silva. So both of those performances were preserved.
Well, the interesting thing about that, David, is that when Rex was doing Anything Goes, in conversation, it was my first Broadway show, and it was Rex's 26th Broadway show.
Oh, man. Oh.
Well, that's something
Yeah.
we'll never catch up to. I don't know. But, that's when you could go from Broadway show to Broadway show. A show would run, make its money back in a season, and you could go on to the next one. Now you were considered a failure if you don't run 2 decades. And I think one of the maybe good things about this pandemic is that the economics of Broadway and that type of thing will be rethought, and instead of these mega shows that demand so much in terms of production values, we'll get back to the basics of theater. And so speaking of back to the basics, we have an audience member who almost every week has gotten the quiz question right.
Wow.
And she did again this week. DG Brandamore, an old friend of mine. I don't know if you know. The answer is Around the World in 80 Days. Did you know that Cole Porter wrote a musical about based on Around the World in 80 Days?
I've actually seen a production of it, but I didn't know.
Really?
Yeah, but I didn't know that it was Orson Welles. It just didn't jump into my head. I saw it at the Muni in St. Louis.
Really? Well, there may have been another adaptation, because there was one done at Jones Beach that was not the Cole Porter version. This was a brainchild of Orson Welles. It was 1946, and I think they had a cast of 70, and I want to say 38 different sets.
Oh my!
Several mechanical elephants, and I believe one live elephant, and it was a multimedia production that had film, in which Orson Welles himself played a small role. So it was way ahead of its time. It was very lavish. Apparently, the critics were mixed about it, and it almost bankrupted the producers just to get it on. It only ran, I think, let's see, what did I say? What did I find? About 50 performances. And the producers cut their losses. And I hate to say it, but it was widely believed that it was Cole Porter who kind of let air out of the balloon, because it was far from his best work. So nobody remembers too many of the songs. But here's another interesting thing. One of the guys, I believe he played Passepartout, was a man by the name of Larry Lawrence. And one of the problems that Orson Welles had was they spent so much money on the production that they had no budget to hire any big names. So we didn't get any stars, but Larry Lawrence played Passepartout, and a few years later he changed his name to Enzo Stuarti. So anybody who knows who Enzo Stuarti was, he was a pop singer, had a big Italian American following. But I guess if you were born with a name like Enzo Stuarti, you got Larry Lawrence.
Yeah.
We seem to have lost Greg for a little while. I know we sometimes have little issues that are technical here, but he'll probably be back.
It's the magic of live theater, right?
Yes, and live. Our apartment here has become a makeshift television studio over the last few months. This is not the only show that comes from this studio. A Piano Bar Live is generated from here.
Oh, wonderful!
On Facebook as well. It's a totally different thing. But Tony Javid, who was our producer here and who happens to be my husband, is the co-producer of Piano Bar Live, and they've been doing this for over a year now, even before the pandemic hit, bringing live music into your home from cabaret venues, and they won a MAC Award this year for.
Congratulations!
So
I attended one. I attended one up at Brandy's. My daughter sang on one of them.
Of course she did. I remember that, Steve. Yeah. Steve has a beautiful and very talented daughter who I've watched grow up, and now she's starring in shows at Surflight, and she was Sally Bowles this year.
Yes, she was.
Yes, I wish I could have seen that, but someday maybe we'll all be on a stage together again.
That'll be nice.
No doubt.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
So that sort of brings me to we've already talked about it a little bit, but what are your immediate plans for going forward? What are you thinking about for your next season? Actually, Don, I know one thing that you're about to do. You're going to do a Hoagie Carmichael and
Cole Porter
review.
We're doing that. That's going to be October 23rd. The drive-in movie concept type of thing, drive-in theater concert. And we'll do two acts, and it's from 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock in the Monon Square. It's a large enough parking lot where we can keep and also there's restaurants along, so you can, once you buy the ticket online through atistage.org, and then it's sent to Eventbrite, and that's how we do that as pre-sale. And then we'll have a combo, a regular rhythm section, and then we'll have, I think we're going to add Reed to it. But she will be, again, everybody is completely socially distanced on it. And then it'll be myself and my two co-founders with the theater company. And that'll be a one night only type of thing. And then we're doing also for November 27th, Black Friday, we'll do a holiday just to kind of have some of that, because there's so much that has just been canceled. And the best way to handle it from a safety protocol way, we're doing it kind of like what you're doing, Steve, is outdoors, and try to do its best. But boy, it'll be cold. It's going to get a little bit chillier once we get closer to November.
Absolutely. Our mutual friend, Alan M.L. Wager, David, who was in that Showboat that you directed, he's now running the Sharon Playhouse with Robert Levinstein. And they're doing drive-in concert work too. Haley Swindle actually just went up and did a concert, as well as the comic that we had on last night did a comedy show a couple weeks ago up there too. So that concept is working for some people. We don't really have a parking lot where that can work, but we do have the park, so we can put the tent up. It's just another variation on a theme.
Well, of course, Surflight, when I was a kid, and I remember Surflight long before you were there, it was a non-equity theater, but they did 1 week stock, and it was very much seasonal. And since you came on board, you kept expanding the season and almost to year round, and the fall and the winter season. Because not too many people go to the beach during that time of year. It was really such a great service to the people who live all year round on Long Beach Island. And I certainly hope that you can keep that up in some form or another, because they depend on it so much.
We hope so. The next year's season, we're usually the season's set by August and we sort of advertise on a calendar year rather than the school year, which I know a lot of organizations use that September to May period. But we've tried to, in past years, have about at least 1 or 2 events in each month that are not the busy months, and then really, pound it hard from June to October, and then again in December. Next year, we're looking at the concept of an uncancelable season. Having gone through this year, we are going to create a season of shows that can work in the tent if we have to be there next year, or if they're in the theater because things have improved, then hopefully they'll be financially a bit more viable because we have more seats in the theater than we can do socially distanced in the tent, and we can pay off some of what we've incurred just getting through this year. But the idea is, whatever we schedule can play in either space.
Great. Great. Well, Greg, what are you doing to amuse yourself during this time? You know, by the way, while you were away, we figured it all out. All of the problems of the world, we decided, and so
You got it.
sorry you missed it, but
You got it. Okay. Well, just send me an email just with bullet points. Like,
okay.
okay. Because I did. Wow, I missed that. What am I doing? I am doing this weird. Can I talk about this? I'm doing this weird. Well, we're talking virtual theater and what people are doing in order to survive, and there's all these platforms now that people are creating that were in person that are now virtually. So like, you're not teaching at Ripley Greer, you're not teaching at rest in peace at a studio. You are now teaching virtually. So yeah, I'm involved with a couple of these platforms, and I'm doing lack of a better word, hoary things, like just like video chats and like, hey, and like and master classes and acting and interpret. There's like a whole host of things. So that's what I'm doing. I'm in the middle of writing a musical. It's called The Rich Project, and it's
Good for you.
yeah. The cool thing about Rich is that I would just record everything from like I have every moment recorded from like when he got sick. So it's The Rich Project, and it's about the crazy things that two people that are in love that have to face tragedy, and what that looks like for two people. It's like a 7-person musical. There's like us, and then there's 5 supporting players. So I've been working on that, and
Good for you.
it's hard to like listen to him. I mean,
Yeah.
I literally have everything, and it's I'm just starting to find comfort in that. So that's what I've been doing. I've been doing like uncle stuff. You know what I mean? Teaching the children, like they both had a joint birthday party, and then the next thing I knew, 25 kids were doing choreography that I was teaching them, like in a bouncy castle. You know what I mean? So,
That's awesome.
yeah, they're like, just trying to inspire. Step 1, just trying to inspire the kids, and I'm just surviving, man. I'm just trying to, like we all are.
Yeah.
We're all just like, where do we survive? How do we survive? It's been a very big year with, the virus and grief and Black Lives Matter and just, it's compounding. It seems nonstop. So it's like anywhere you can just grab like joy or inspiration or enlightenment, I feel like is where we all need to be, and what I aspire to give and love. But yeah, I miss Hamilton so much.
I can't think of a more personal and unique project than what you're talking about, the Rich Project. No one can tell that story the way you will be able to. And I think it'll be very therapeutic for you too. This forum for me is very therapeutic. I didn't think that it was going to have that side effect, but I'm very grateful that every Sunday I get to spend some time with some old friends and see their faces and feel their optimism and their drive. We are in a business that, the Fabulous Invalid, that keeps rising, and there is it fulfills a unique place for people who love theater, and nothing can replace it. So we are carrying the torch, and we will go on. I've told you I am about to do something that I never imagined I would. It's completely a virtual project, and it is with Theater Emory, that is associated with Emory University. And it is a new version of the Lorraine Hansberry play Les Blancs. So I'm very excited to do that. And one of the plays that I was offered last year has been postponed, but hopefully will happen next year. So that's exciting too. It gives you a dream to go to sleep on every night. And I've been doing some teaching. I have I'm teaching a master class tomorrow night for the University of Michigan online. So that's kind of
That's awesome. I have to say, University of Emory University is very special to me because my dad in 2010 underwent a double lung transplant at Emory University. Amazing. Those guys are really something else down there. I'm so excited that you're doing work with them for the theater department. How exciting!
About them, and this came about, and I'm very pleased. We had a guest last week on our all-female panel, Amy Griffin. I don't know if you know Amy, a very talented actress and director, and she quoted something that we all have to do now. Is the quote was, "Put your big girl panties on and deal with this situation that we're in." And I said, well, that doesn't apply to next week's guests. And she very adamantly informed me that, oh, yes, it does. That knows no gender.
I played Alban Zaza. Yes, I'll put on my big girl panties. Thank you.
And I was in Little Shop, so I played Claire Booth Luce for about 30 seconds.
Well, you know,
there you are. Yes,
it's another role that we've shared, Don. You know how many times I've done Luck.
I know.
I did see pictures of you, and you look quite the treat as Alban. And,
thank you. You know, Larry Rabin directed me in that, and David Engel came in and also gave us some tidbits from his stint as Hana with the whip.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Larry was. I did one of the many productions of Producers post.
Oh, yes.
With Larry. So and he was actually in our production for a while too. When Producers was in its heyday, there were any number of first class companies going on, and the way that whole team worked was that they could pull you out of Detroit on Monday and put you in Cleveland on Tuesday, and you know, you didn't know whether you were going to the Broadway company or this company or that company.
That is Hamilton, an American musical.
Yeah,
amazing.
That is.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a little while before we get back to that level, but that was, you know, maybe we got a little too complacent about theater being the big corporation, and now you guys in your theaters have always gotten back to basics that way. And
it's all about telling the story, man. You got to tell the story.
Absolutely.
That's what rules it. That's what rules it.
Yeah, and I'll try my best not to close any more theaters.
Well, before you close, you better get a mug.
You know, I'll have to dig that mug out. And Steve's, I guess we were talking about this before the broadcast, but for those of you who don't know, Steve gives his curtain speech at Surflight always with a Surflight mug in his hand, and it's become such a signature deal that if he didn't do it, we would miss it terribly. When we were doing 39 Steps down there, I think you did it sort of as Alfred Hitchcock when you came out.
That's a great play. That's so much fun.
Yeah.
39 Steps. Yeah.
It feels like it was just yesterday, but then it does. Sometimes it feels like it was 10 years ago because so much has happened. But
I know, it's crazy. I mean, the stuff that you would have done with us this year, we had to push off into next year too. So there'll be some of that too for it.
Well, that's great. That gives me hope too. You know, that's one of the things I envy about you guys is that, and I think that we all should remember this in some form or another. And Greg, you're doing it. Is you have to make your own work too, and you've gotten to play some wonderful roles in your own theater. It's not that you weren't every bit as capable of playing them on Broadway, but sometimes we all know we're not on the first 3 names that you know. So you want to play your dream role, you make it happen some way or another. And you guys have done that. And you've done it for me, too. I've played a lot of dream roles with you, Steve. And I greatly appreciate that in both plays and musicals. So it's something to look forward to. I'm very homesick right now, seeing the background where you are, because I know exactly where you're sitting in the office.
Yes, indeed. My very messy office.
No, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It wouldn't be where I come to visit you and see you, putting all the pandemonium in organized stature there. You always take care of everything. So listen, we've just about come to the end of this hour and a half. I thank you so much for joining me. And I would like to announce next week's guests. I think Tony will put the names on the screen. We have Martin Childers, who is the managing director of now I can't think of the name of the place. I just worked there last year, where I did a beautiful play called The Star Maker at Island City Stage. He's not going to do the show next week now after he hears it. And I wouldn't blame him. But I had a wonderful experience working there, and the play was terrific. I hope it has a life beyond there. And we're going to talk to him about what the future for Island City Stage is. I know they're making their own plans, and a gentleman by the name of Brian Michael Hoffman, who has not only had a wonderful career as an actor, but has a unique career helping to train the animals that are in Broadway shows.
Oh, neat.
So he's been involved in more Broadway shows than I guess Rex Everhart has in terms of the animals, certainly. And last but not least, a lovely actress by the name of Marjorie Lowe, who I haven't seen in a long time, but she's part of the Florida theatrical community. She's won many awards down there, and I can't wait to see her, because when I worked with her last, she played my daughter in A Little Night Music, and now she has grown kids of her own. So going back to how many years I've been in Actors Equity, you figure it out. Actually, we're not that far apart in age, but she was eternally youthful, and I'm sure she still is. So I'm looking forward to my chat with these three folks next week. And as our playoff, we do have a little Hoagie Carmichael music.
Yes.
Yes, to put that
Wonderful.
in the minds and the hearts of the Indiana audience who are going to come and see your drive-in show. I mean, drive-in theater always was movies to me, and now look at what we've got. Look at what we've invented.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Be well, gentlemen. Thank you so much for what you've done for all of us today, and I wish you well, and I hope it won't be too long before we're on a live stage again together.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yes, well, we may be the same age, but remember that it's 20 Celsius.
Okay.
Good one. Good one. I like that.